I'll start. So my name is Handzuš. I work for the DXC technology here in Slovakia, and today I prepared for you a topic which is about the eID card and actually our electronic national identity scheme here in Slovakia and how we can use it in your business, because this is possible, right? So we are living in a really dynamic era. The technology evolves in unprecedented pace, and this also relates to how we can onboard and get to new customers without necessity of seeing each other and having them physically present at the branch. So let's have a look what the current anti-money laundering directive allows us to do in the current situation. So we have two alternatives basically. First one is to use means and methods after consideration of risks that can be considered similar to physical presence verification of the client. The second one is about using the eID, which is directly stated as equivalent to physical presence of the client during the verification. So these two alternatives, I don't see them to be mutually exclusive, right? So they can coexist and they can be used at the same time. So that means in parallel. Let me go through both of them to tell you more about it. What are the main steps? What are the differences? What may be more attractive for one or other alternative for your business? So let's do the online onboarding without the eID. So how we can look, what are the main steps? So basically, the first you need to do is to take a snapshot of the front and the rear side of the ID card, and then use the optical character recognition mechanism to mine the data. Then go through the selfie, facial biometrics comparison, and then the liveness detection. And the final step should be verification of all those data gathered and verified against the authoritative sources. So, easy, right? So let's have a double click on the first step. So OCR of the ID card. So you click it twice on your smartphone camera and you have both sides. That's it. You have the data. You just OCR them. You need to just be sure that you have the correct layout. Yes, if the optical character recognition fits actually, that E is not an O and so on. You don't have a reflection on the card, so you need to have light conditions ready. So it's a bit more complicated than just taking a picture. And also you need to realize that on the eID card, which is actually engraved by the laser technology, you can have also medical records. And those medical records relates to serious medical conditions that require specific procedure during providing the medical care, or it requires to provide medicine immediately in some cases. So maybe if they, for example, if I go to the extreme, they may, for example, shorten the life expectancy, and I'm not sure if bank having this data would give you also loan in that case. I believe that should be considered regularly or really fairly with the others, but that's it. So actually this is the set of data that banks should have available, or financial institutions or fintech companies, for them to open the bank account. Much less data that you actually get from the OCR of the both sides. So yes, we are getting to the GDPR. So you know what are the principles related to the health condition or health records and the loss of control over the data collection, because you cannot control how many data you will provide by taking a snapshot of the ID card from the rear and the front. So that's the minimization as one of the principles that is broken, but who cares? Everybody is doing it right. But wrong is wrong, even if everyone is doing it, and right is right, even if no one is doing it. Actually, not no one. We have some specific bright cases. UK, which is basically a partner to this event, they set up a pilot solution providing a service for the companies, such as banks and financial institutions, to verify the identity without actually having a copy of the passport or uploading any kind of copy of the ID document. Yeah, and they try to communicate it with openly with the public that this should be for their sake of financial security and protection of the privacy. So the second step, selfie, then the facial biometrics liveness detection. So it depends really on the, let's say, light conditions. right? So you do not have to, or you can't have shades. You cannot do it in the darkness. You need to position yourself in the correct way, and so on. So basically, I know people that went through this onboarding, and they had to go on the balcony to do it correctly and do it right. And also, I had an interaction on one of the branches of the Slovak banks, and the clerk told me that I suggested that I would like to go through this onboarding right here on your branch directly, and she replied to me that the light conditions might not be perfect, so it might be a little bit cumbersome. We would need to step aside from the branch and so on. So this is not contributing very well to the user experience that we try to achieve, right? Liveness detection, few solutions, let's say, revolves around following the dot on the mobile phone, and some others, you know, you need to blink or turn the face around and so on, but still good. And the others basically use the live video chat with a clerk or employee of the bank just during the scheduled hours. So if you are opening a bank account in the evening, it might be trouble, or there are many other people waiting in line, so you need to stay or hold on online to get to your round. So actually, the user experience that should be fast and easy might turn out is not that fast, it's not that easy. Actually, biometrics might be, let's say, a slight bottleneck through the entire process. So the final step then, if you have all the data, you went through the biometrics and check and comparison, then you need to compare those gather data with the authoritative source. That means another one or two integrations to the Ministry of Interior, to match to get the match score, and the results related to identity data inform is yes or no, and that's the level of some certainty or uncertainty for you to decide whether to open the bank account or not. So actually, with the online onboarding without the eID, you need to see each other. That's the basis, and also often you just basically show more that you would like to the bank, providing all details, even they are not necessary. And there is a still fair chance they will need to visit the branch because you are a new client, you can log in, but you don't have the login credentials. So you are going back to the branch, physical presence. The other alternative is use the eID. So there's the current eID scheme that is already rolled out in Slovakia since 2013, December. What you can use, or what is the principle, is to provide your security code. We call it BOK, bezpečnostný osobný kód, which is the abbreviation in English. So it's fast. It happens in 4.6 seconds. So it's basically instant. It's secure. It complies with the high level of assurance according to eID's framework. And it's reliable. You can rely on that. It's certain. It comes from the Ministry of Interior. It's really fast, and they check whether the ID is correct, if it is valid, if it has not been stolen, or is it in proper state that could be used. So this is let's say, a scheme that is pretty complicated. I will try to focus or get your attention on the point number 3 and 4. This is the verification of the ID once the authentication is done. And I just want to mention that you have always under your control your personal data. It's according to the GDPR principles. That's the unique solution in terms of national identity schemes. So I'm not sure if you had a chance to use the eID, but once you use it, you can click here on the more information to who is trying to access your data and which data specifically they need to provide you the service. There can be even optional data that you can check out. Yeah, so you don't need to provide more than is really necessary for the service. So you always have your personal data under your control solely. Then the verification. Okay, so once this is done, there are no more steps, no more lights. You can do it in the basement, wherever. So why to use it? Because there is a mantra that not everybody is using the eID card, and the saturation between or among the citizens are really or is really low. So I don't think so, because we have already 3.8 million cards rolled out. That's 80% of the population. 2 million of them are active. That means that they have the box set up. It is going to be used for e-health purposes. The level of assurance is high, so there is no need to be, let's say, concerned about security. All statutory legal persons are using it because they need to communicate with the state in an electronic way. And since March this year, there is an obligation from the Ministry of Interior to provide you with such a service if you request it, and if you need to verify the identity prior doing the business and setting up the contracts and so on. So this is basically perfect for online onboarding. So what are the eID typical use cases? Yes, authentication, login into your internet banking, online onboarding, which we went through right now, authorization, which could be a great deal, mainly for the, let's say, complicated or more valuable financial products like mortgages and so on, because there you don't have many solutions on the market that will provide you with a qualified electronic signature, which is legally valid and equivalent to a handwritten signature, actually. And another use case that I would like to point to is the confirmation of physical presence in the bank, so we can avoid internal fraud. Once doing some operation, there has been some cases when the clerks masked themselves up using fake IDs and done the transaction in the name of someone that they actually were not. So another thing with the confirmation of presence is that you remember the awkward moments that you are coming to the branch office of the bank, you hand over your ID card and the clerk takes it, goes for a few minutes behind the corner, you cannot see your ID, and he then comes back a few minutes later, handing you over the eID, and so it's fine, it's perfect. I don't know if they did some copies of it, who is the guy that took my eID from my site, and so on. So basically, I'm not sure what happened during the time that I couldn't see my card. So in this case, I would simply pull out my eID card, put it in the reader. I can provide my, let's say, PIN or BOC, or do it even without that PIN or BOC, to just confirm that it's me, and you will get just the data that you need for my ID verification. It's much more honorable for me as a client to see that bank somehow also respect my privacy, and they are not trying to do the copies of my ID every time I step into the bank. So that's the added value from the user experience, for example. And it's we are not focusing on specific industry. Basically, whoever needs to verify the identity in a certain way, that's for you. All right, so we are spinning up a bit. I'm not sure if somebody clicked instead of me, but what we are trying to do now is to shift from the eID card-based solutions into the mobile ones, so we can solely use your mobile phone just without no reader, no card, anytime from any place, and use and consume services directly on a mobile phone, so you can authorize, authenticate, and even sign remotely. There has been some remarks about signing or using app for the signature and approval of some kind of a business and so on. So this is the perfect use case for that. So mobile eID, as usually, you will download the application, the client application for the mobile eID. Then comes the registration activation process, which is pretty straightforward. Maybe you know it, maybe you don't. You can use either the eID card for the ID verification or the biometrics, as we know it today. So then the electronic identity is derived. It can be saved in a client database. And then the activation begins. You scan the unique QR code, set up all, sorry, I was a bit fast, set up all the factors. So the crypto material, PIN, you can even activate your, let's say, comfort factors like face recognition, voice recognition, fingerprint, basically anything that the device supports, right? So it's basically seamless. Then there is some exchange of the cryptographic material, and the server side of the solution will generate unique ID for you. So it's basically anonymous. So next time when you use it, you just provide your factors that are necessary or required, whatever you set up, and you are identified, and you can access the services of your financial services provider. Another use case which is important is the authorization of, let's say, transactions. Let's say that we try to do the payment from our mobile banking, so I will click to authorize my transaction with certain parameters. So it goes down, the parameters are communicated through the authentication server on my device. I just click approve. You can even manage or force which factors should be used during the authorization. If it is a low, let's say, threshold for the transaction, like 25 euros, you can just say click OK, and it's done. Or even you can force out that you need to provide also your PIN or even your fingerprint and so on and so on. So once you use your factors, authentication goes well, you have a cryptogram, and then the result is communicated back to your device, and you can be sure that everything went really well. And the final, let's say, use case for the mobile ID is the remote signature. The solution is prepared for integration and provide the sole control level required for the remote signature according to the eIDAS regulatory standards. So once you have a ready document that you want to sign, you will connect to the signing module on a server, remote server that should be doing the signing operation. The visualization is then communicated directly to a device, so what you see is what you sign is also implemented here. You click to sign the document, provide once again all your required factors for the authentication. The result is a cryptogram that is matched or tied to the data that you try to use and sign, and you activate the signature creation data, basically cryptographic material stored remotely on the HSM, which is then used to sign the document, and you can download then the document that has been signed. So the mobile ID, as we designed it, the cornerstone, and as a matter of course, it is compliant with all the key regulatory standards and regulations and directives such as eIDAS, GDPR, PSD2, MLD4 and 5, and so on. So as for the very end, I would like to say that please consider using whatever the alternative you consider the best. I think that eID is here for your benefit. You can use it freely. It's really, let's say, cheap, and it can't be compared to the complexity of the processes that you need to do with the biometric verification. And that's it from my side. So if you want to see demonstrations of the mobile eID or even know more details about current eID or how it can be used for your business, we are here and we are ready for you in the lobby on our stand.
Invitation from Handzuš from DXC Technology. Thank you.